Hi guys, back. Masks for coronavirus wouldn't stop the plague. So let's look at looking at polio here. So these RNA viruses colonize the gastrointestinal tract, and it causes disease in humans alone. So now, 3 serotypes of poliovirus have been identified: PV1, 2, and 3. Slightly different capsid proteins. So all three are extremely virulent. PV1 is most common and most closely associated with paralysis, despite paralysis being extremely rare. So we've got IgA, immunoglobulin A antibodies against poliovirus. So the tonsils, IgG, IgM, in relation to preventing the spread to motor neurons and the central nervous system. So full immunity requires exposure to each serotype. So that's got to be structured into the vaccines, apparently. Okay, transmission, right? So it's the fecal-oral thing. In endemic areas, well, so it's all going to be part of the fecal-oral route, or oral-oral routes. If there's a lot of kissing going on, the saliva, or I guess other saliva-related, that could be just shared eating utensils. So we've got the incubation period. It's all about the feces, primarily anyway. Contamination. So Afghanistan and Pakistan we were talking about, so just polluted rivers and waterways and so on. Okay, so pathophysiology. So this is kind of interesting here. This is where it gets into, it's primarily a gastrointestinal disease. It can start, it can start like with coronavirus actually. It's kind of an interesting comparison. The pharynx and the intestinal mucosa. So the pharynx, that's already up in the, that's still up in the oral and nasal region. The pharynx, right? The back of the, if I got my larynx and pharynx, laryngeo, pharyngeo, anatomical areas there, right? So it can start reproducing. That's an interesting comparison there. Also an opportunity to remember that chlamydia is called the bug, right? The microorganism that causes it. The sexual disease is called a bacteria, but it actually is already functioning like a virus, but they call it a bacteria. So just as an interesting reminder that viruses seem to have, they've identified chlamydia as kind of a transitional, and I consider it seems to be the strongest argument to me, seems that it is an example of the transition that occurred from bacteria, which then began assuming using a spore life form and life cycle, alternating life cycle, that then parasitic, that then became entirely viral in nature, and parasitic viral in nature. So the poliovirus then is all about the gastrointestinal system, but already is reproducing in the pharynx. So, but we can be thankful that it is not an airborne disease yet, anyway, right? So viremia, the presence in the bloodstream, the virus in the bloodstream, then involves the virus being exposed to many parts of the blood, right? The lymphatic system and so on. And so it begins to enter into the different parts of the body. So it's primarily, that's what it's primarily about. And they're stating here that they don't actually identify any kind of benefit of the virus invading the central nervous system. That's a very interesting observation. And so they assume that it is an incidental, that it's kind of a side effect of its normal ecosystem, its normal, its standard or original or principal niche, right? Its ecological niche that is sort of surviving so that it can then be in the gastrointestinal system, so that it can then be transmitted to other people. Poorly understood, so they have stuff to understand about how the polio virus spreads to the central nervous system. A chance event, independent of age, gender, or socioeconomic position of the individual. So then there's paralytic polio, spinal polio, bulbar polio, bulbar spinal diagnosis, prevention, paths of immunization. So this gets kind of interesting, right? The history of immunization. Let's go to that. You know, William Hammond in 1950 was doing work with blood plasma and gamma globulins, right, working with the antibodies to the poliovirus, right, which is similar to what has been happening with coronavirus at this point. The first available strategy that can be used is getting these antibodies produced by people who survive or who recover from the illness. So that was William Hammond, but that didn't really ultimately work too well. So let's see, live but attenuated virus, virologist Hilary Kaprowski. So by 1950, she had some good results working with an 8-year-old boy. I'll tell my kids, that's a good thing for me to remember. I like to tell the kids about these kind of things. So let's see. Trials in the Belgian Congo, Poland. But so the second inactivated polio virus vaccine by Jonas Salk, 1952, University of Pittsburgh. So Hilary Kaprowski, was she then Polish? More of these fascinating little details to look up. So University of Pittsburgh, Jonas Salk announced to the world in 1955 the Salk vaccine, inactivated polio virus, grown in monkey kidney, chemically inactivated with formalin, 2 doses, 90% or more individuals develop antibody. Oi, meu filho. Hey, it's my little 2-year-old. I guess he just woke up. So then Albert Sabin came through with a live oral polio vaccine. Easier to produce, but as they go on to explain, so 95% after three doses. Oh, my boy wants to go to the beach. Yeah, so I got to get going here. But right, quarantine, making the best of quarantine discreetly, and 95% recipients get resistance. But then there's this process of reversion, which becomes a problem. All right, so I'm going to do the additional language thing in another video. Okay, so thanks for stopping by for this conversation. See you, bye.